issues from me. I had no more than started, and he raised up his hands, figuratively speaking, and protested. He protested for like an hour straight. He protested that he didn't want to understand anything about the problem. He didn't want to understand anything about solution. Nobody wanted to understand anything about the problem and the solution. They just wanted to have an idea of the answer or something. And it was after all this protesting, everything he protested, I explained in return that without these understandings, we would never have anything to unite upon. But so this site, the Lawful Bank, and this purported the alternate monetary system he calls TAMS, T-A-M-S, are the product of a person who not only doesn't understand these issues, but protests that they don't need to. Now, after our discussion, or before our discussion, but right about that time, I went to a site where they're involved in, this same person is involved in, all kinds of, other issues. And they're not monetary issues. And their techniques of disseminating information were to request that so many people show up at some kind of event when we don't even know what kind of a protest it's going to be, what it's a protest of, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sorry, am I unique or something? That doesn't appeal to me. That does not take me anywhere. That does not do anything for me. So the truth of the matter is here, we have something that's arising, which is authored by someone who's actually repelling the meat of the matter and intentionally intending to exclude it, as if people who are agreeably, that is, they agree to being dumbed down, are the way to solution. Then he claims in correspondence between us that he's not competing with solution at all. Well, how is that? How can that possibly be when you raise yourself, without even citing a principle, you raise yourself to some kind of stature which, of course, contends with visibility in the very least, as if it is a purported solution. So there's no truth to that either. And what is this purported lawful bank? Well, if we go down this list, it just goes on to say some obtuse things which are so obvious it's pathetic, but that don't lend any credence to a fact of solution or the fact that this is necessary. So this person was saying, well, I don't argue that you may have solved economy. I mean, I asked that he invalidate this proposition of singular solution. He didn't offer an iota of argument against it. Why would you compete with it then? Why would you stand up, who don't understand these things, refuse to understand these things, even repel explanation? Why would you stand up as if you're necessary? Okay? Well, there's money involved. This is a money-making scheme here. So he says that most nations around the world do not control their own money supply is not well known, he says. And he's actually advocating that we don't well know it, if we don't understand this. Because how are we to understand that we don't control our money supply if we don't even understand that how it's controlled is wrong? Could we borrow money and it not be subject to interest? Well, people argued that was the argument, that interest was necessary. All these many years, people said, who would lend us money if it wasn't subject to interest? So you can't understand that interest is not justified unless you understand the obfuscation of the currency. And all these people, this person included, are claiming that money has to be free of interest. He's saying that it can't be a debt. He's agreeing with the money is debt people. In fact, he claimed in his correspondence that, I reminded him that in a video that I have downloaded, saved, hijacked the audio of so that I could have produced a extremely articulate, detailed invalidation of basically everything conceivable that's involved in this, proposition of this purported lawful bank. I could have invalidated it all detail by detail, and you would all be so bored, But the truth is, it's just utterly preposterous in every step of the way. But why? I reminded him that he claimed in this speech that he gave. I mean, after he refused to listen to anything, he gave me a few minutes and then was agreeable, but then didn't have any more time, and we haven't had a discussion since. You see? So he basically learned nothing and spent almost the whole while refusing to learn anything and claiming that people don't need or want to understand, when the fact of the matter is we cannot govern ourselves if we don't understand our issues. And the issue we have to understand is this obfuscation of the currency. So I watched this video where he addresses people for something like an hour. It's a small audience. In fact, the audience evidently understands monetary issues better than he did. And in the course of this explanation, when he's challenged on the monetary issues, he claims that he studied monetary reform for 35 years. Well, I challenged him on that, and he denies that he's ever even said it. So, I mean, I have a video of him saying it, from his own other web pages, So it's like arguing in circles to claim he's not even competing, yet competing, and in the great number of the list of people that we were just reading, then obscuring the fact of singular solution. And this is done by people that are even repelling understanding for themselves. Now, how are they going to offer you anything? He says, so that most nations around the world do not control their own money supply is not well known. Nations, he says. But it should be. And it is our intention, therefore, to educate as many people as possible. Baloney. Baloney. What is the thing to educate? And where is it here on these pages? There's no education here provided. This is, go to it, lawfulbank.com. And where is the principle? Where is the obfuscation of the currency? Where is the cause of inevitable failure? Where is the justice? Okay. Now, so in this video where he claimed to have studied monetary reform for 35 years, he then answers the people saying that he could just take out a piece of paper and write on it whatever it was worth, and that would be that good. That money is created out of nothing, out of thin air. Well, that is not the issue at all. Money is not created out of thin air. Money is this obfuscation of the monetary process. It's never created out of thin air. It's always created out of our issuance of a promissory obligation. The bank publishes evidence of the promissory obligation into circulation, obfuscates that into a falsified debt which is not even owed to the bank, but which the bank claims to be owed to it. With this falsified debt ostensibly justifying interest, which of course multiplies artificial indebtedness into terminal indebtedness. In just that little, I've explained the whole thing sufficiently that any reasonable person, I would think, anyone capable of just self-government at least, would understand it. Would go over those few sentences, however many, 2 or 3 times was necessary to go, whoa, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's exactly right. So this is just claiming by a person who's resisted this explanation, my original explanation, which if they ever offer it they will be plagiarizing me. They resisted that, and yet they're claiming that their purpose is to educate as many people as possible, unquote, about this issue and explain its significance in terms of the impact it has on our freedoms. Who's done that? Where has this person been all this while? And where have they explained this on these pages? They don't. TAMS has been developed to counter the destructive modern-day banking system that is the sole cause of the massive debt mountains that are now the burden of virtually every nation on this planet. Well, where did he get that idea? And how can he say that with credibility if it isn't by this obfuscation of the currency, which my work has explained? Do you just accept that? People do. But it isn't right to just accept it, because if we just accept it without understanding how that is, which is only a few sentences of explanation, without understanding that, we can't understand what solution is. And as this man advocated in this same program where he spoke to these people, the video is on his own. Actually, I think it was on YouTube. He advocates then, he doesn't explain a single principle, not of cause of failure, nor of solution, nor of implementing solution. And yet he has been arguing till he's blue in the face that he's not competing with me, and yet that this lawful bank, as he calls it, which it probably isn't, is a necessary step before we transition to mathematically perfected economy. Without even understanding this strategy, he claims that although he doesn't understand solution, that he can't invalidate mathematically perfected economy, etc., that this isn't a solution. He even says himself, and I have his words, that this lawful, so-called lawful bank is not a solution. He says it himself. It is not, doesn't even pretend a solution. He says that himself. And yet what does he do? He advocates in his speaking about this that if you want to understand money, go and watch the video Money is Debt, the very program that we so carefully invalidated in every way last week. You see? So this is what you get when you get all these plagiarists. You have people standing up. Obviously, this is intended to provide the impression that it's a solution. And it says that TAMS provides the means by which national debt mountains can be extinguished. The means. Those means were provided a long time ago for the universal benefit of all of us. Oh, really? By spending money into circulation, denying us our right to issue credit? Absolutely not. By creating streams of positive financial liquidity, just using terms, positive financial liquidity. There'll be less of a stream than there would be under mathematically perfected economy without inflation. And there would be inflation if you spend money into circulation, because every unit of the currency has to have an obligation to pay and retire the principal from circulation. It's the same thing, and the people who should be paying for that are the ones who consume of it. There is no free lunch, and this can't provide a free lunch, but it wants to sound like it is. Positive financial liquidity. Not a word to prove what is said here. Positive is negative in respect to mathematically perfected economy, and that's the thing that we can easily prove. And all of us should understand this now who've listened to just, a small handful of these programs so far. It is a statement of fact, he goes on, that these debt mountains were entirely unnecessary and exist simply because the political elite and national governments have been persuaded, some would say bribed, to hand over the control of their nation's money supply to the international banking cartel. In our view, this is nothing short of criminal collusion. Well, big deal. These are the obvious things. This doesn't mean that his bank solves this, okay? But he goes on, you can change things. Please sign up to the Lawful Bank. Use the subscribe link to the left of this. Read the details at your leisure. Please note, you are not making a commitment at this stage. You are merely expressing an interest which will provide us with an early indication of the level of support that we might suspect. Is this why they don't provide any principles? That the success, in other words, get a public who doesn't even understand what they're doing to sign up anyway. The success of TAMS depends on our ability to coordinate